For nearly 3 months, the city of Chicago has lived under the shadow of President Trump's Operation Midway Blitz, a cruel campaign that has swept up innocent American citizens, legal residents, and immigrants who pose no threat to public safety. The Trump administration justifies this campaign by saying they're targeting, quote, the worst of the worst. Oh, you heard him give the speech over and over again. We're going after those illegal immigrants in this country who are rapists, terrorists, murderers, criminally insane. The worst of the worst, as he says over and over again. But the situation on the ground, the reality of the situation, paints a dramatically different picture. As part of these immigration raids, agents, ICE agents and others, have baselessly rounded up and disappeared people on the streets and in homes across the city, almost all of whom had no prior warrants or criminal history. Terrorists? That's not the case at all. I want to speak to you about one of the incidents that I ran across when I went back home last week. 2 weeks ago, a viral video showed agents, federal agents, storming through the doors of Rayito del Sol, daycare and preschool center in the North Center neighborhood of Chicago. These ICE agents, in their camouflage uniforms and with masks on their face, were dragging out a teacher while she screamed and cried, "I have papers," in Spanish. That teacher's name is Diana Santillana, but her students, little girls and boys, between the age of 6 months and 6 years, know her as Miss Diana. According to school officials, Diana had an authorization to work, and agents did not present a warrant when they entered the building. This is the Meet the Teacher flyer for Miss Diana that's posted in the classrooms of Rayito del Sol. This was the woman that the ICE agents went into the school and daycare center and arrested. The flyer describes Diana's love of early education and working with kids because, quote, it's one of the most rewarding experiences, in her words, and she likes to nurture and leave a mark on young ones. Does this look like one of the rapists, murderers, terrorists, criminally insane that President Trump has reminded us of over and over again? Of course not. Thankfully, Miss Diana was released from detention after a judge ruled her mandatory detention was illegal. They swooped her up out of this daycare center. She disappeared and no one could find her. Not family, friends, no one could find her. And then she turned up in a facility, I believe, in Indiana, and they released her from there. What was this all about? Well, I'll tell you what it was all about. It was about the reign of terror, which this Operation Midway Blitz is visiting on the city of Chicago. Following her release, Diana said, quote, I love our community and the children I teach, and I can't wait to see them again. Does that sound like a terrorist rant? I know they can't wait to see her. They love Miss Diana. But this incident has rattled this community in Chicago, especially the kids who attend Rayito del Sol, who range in age, from, as I mentioned, from 6 months to 6 years. This past week, I visited with the parents of some of these students. About 12 of them met. They, of course, expressed concerns for her because they love her. Miss Diana is well loved by all these kids. They also worried about the impact of this incident on their kids. The questions and the nightmares that followed as these little ones were forced to see and hear the administration's brutality in full view. In an interview later, after the incident took place, one of the parents, Tara, said, and I quote, the families were traumatized. Children were crying, and the scene was one none of us ever witnessed before and will never forget. It is outrageous that children are exposed to this, but the Trump administration basically doesn't give a damn. There used to be a time when ICE didn't cross certain lines. DHS had policies against enforcement at schools and churches for this very reason. Not anymore. They've got to go after terrorists like Miss Diane, and so they have to break all of the rules that have been established. President Trump has touted Operation Midway Blitz as a resounding success, but these raids aren't targeted. The administration is swooping people off the streets, while they're dropping off their kids at school or heading to work, or simply looking Hispanic, good enough to be arrested and deported. Don't take my word for it. Listen to what U.S. District Court Judge Jeffrey Cummings said. In a lawsuit challenging warrantless immigration arrest in Illinois, Judge Cummings read from a summary he and his law clerks compiled of more than 150 pending immigration cases in which arrestees were challenged their deportation. The judge said the circumstances of the arrest show that Operation Midway Blitz is not targeting hardened criminals, not targeting the worst of the worst. In that case, the Trump administration provided a list of more than 600 individuals detained during Midway Blitz. By their own data, just 16 of the 1,600 detainees have any criminal history that poses a high risk to public safety. Do you know what percentage that is, Mr. President? Less than 3%. Terrorists, rapists, murderers, criminally insane. Less than 3% have any criminal background. All of this confirms what I've been saying for months. What is happening in Chicago with Midway Blitz is a political theater to spread fear, not reduce crime. Oh, they struck fear in the hearts of the kids at this daycare center. They may never forget what they saw that day when the agents came in their camouflage and their mask and whisked this poor woman out to deport her, and started off by sending her to Indiana and then releasing her. It made no sense whatsoever. This is political theater at its worst. Chicago deserves better. America deserves better. Reports indicate Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino is leaving the city of Chicago. Let me tell you, he couldn't leave too soon for my conclusion. However, we expect immigration raids to continue in the city. And Mr. Bovino has already taken his administration's brutal tactics that they've been practicing in Chicago to Charlotte, North Carolina. In just one weekend, DHS agents raided a church and arrested at least one U.S. citizen simply because he looked Hispanic. In Mr. Bovino's own words, and I quote, "It wouldn't surprise me to see us in a city near you." So I ask my colleagues, especially my Republican friends who value liberty and freedom as much as I do, what is stopping this government from deploying tear gas in your home city? What is stopping them from pointing guns at your constituents? What does arresting your fellow neighbors without cause mean to you in the future? It's a legitimate question. Don't look the other way out of personal or political loyalty to this president. Look straight in the eyes of the people you represent and tell them you stand for the Constitution and the well-worn history of this country where we have tried to push back when tyrants emerge. It's on all of us to call out these abuses of powers and this trampling of civil liberties. How can we say to Miss Diana, we're sorry? We can say it by ending Midway Blitz as fast as possible and by reassuring the families there that we want to have a safe nation, but not at the expense of our basic liberties. I yield the floor.